guys, welcome to episode 32 of the Football Manager Creator Showcase. I'm the Custard Prophet and this is the Christmas special. So, what we normally do on this show is to get two creators who make FM content on Twitch or YouTube or something else and get them to talk about their channels and stuff like that. And that's what we've done for the past 31 episodes. But as it's Christmas, today we are going to do something a little bit different. What we are going to be doing is we're going to be chatting, or I'm going to be chatting to three other Football Manager creators about FM. About YouTube and various other topics, and hopefully I'm going to have a nice little chat for 30-45 minutes, and hopefully you guys will quite enjoy that. If you do really enjoy this format, let me know, because I have an idea of making it into a regular feature, either for this showcase or actually branching it out into a different save or a different series altogether. Now let's figure out who we've got on this show today. So all three of them have been on the showcase before. They're three of my best mates in FM. We have Avoiding Relegation, That Trucking Football Manager, and Dodgy Gamer. So let's go and have a chat with them. First of all, welcome to the Creator Showcase, and this is the first time I can say welcome back to the Creator Showcase. As I said in the introduction, we're doing something a little bit different, which is rather cool. Hope you enjoy this. I have three of my best mates from the FM community here to chat about FM and YouTube and other such things. But before we get into it, I think it's only fair that we introduce these fantastic trio, and I will let them do that for you. I'll get them to tell us a little bit about their channel and about themselves. Okay, we'll start with Avoiding Relegation, because you've got the hat on.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, I'm Avoiding Relegation, if that introduction wasn't enough. But yeah, I'm a YouTuber and currently a Twitch streamer now as well, newly minted. But yeah, currently enjoying a save with Halifax Wanderers, which I'm actually doing on both Twitch and YouTube at the moment, which is a mistake. Next time it will definitely be two different saves, because, oh my God, it's Halifax overload at the moment. But other than that, yeah, it's fantastic. It's going really well.
Right, we'll go to the Trucking Football Manager now.
Seamlessly.
Who, me? My name's Damien. I am the Trucking Football Manager. I am a YouTube creator for about 3 years and a Twitch creator for about 3 months. Enjoying them both. At the minute, my YouTube save is with Tasmania Berlin, getting them out of the 5th tier of German football, trying to get Berlin a Champions League winning side. And it's gone pretty well so far. No spoilers in case you want to start from the beginning. And on Twitch, I have, when I get the time, I have a Journeyman with 117 leagues loaded up. At the minute, we are in the 3rd tier of Macedonian football. So you have to say there's some journeying to be done. And that is unfortunately when I get time to do it. I can't schedule that sort of thing, unfortunately. But it's been great fun going along and having people popping in and dropping suggestions for changing player names and all sorts of stuff like that. So, yeah, that's where I am at the minute.
Cool. I'd have thought the 3rd tier of Macedonian football is the peak, isn't it?
It's up there. It's something. There's some stuff that happens at that level of football where you can tell the algorithms are not quite set right. Stuff happens.
Oh. And finally, Dodgy Gamer.
Yes, hello everyone. So I'm Dodgy Gamer. Started my YouTube channel with Football Manager content about 3 years ago, although with various breaks and things, it's the last 18 months I've been doing it solidly. And my current save for Football Manager 2021, we just started with just a few episodes in with Santa Clara in Portugal, a team from the Azores, and our mission is to break the dominance of the big three in Portugal: Porto, Benfica and Sporting Lisbon. So we're just partway through the first season on that at the moment, so a long way to go on that. I'm also putting together some guides now. I kind of feel a bit more experienced on YouTube these days, so I've been doing some guides to international management, which is going to build up to an international journeyman save that I'll be starting in the new year, where the idea with that is we start at the lowest ranked nation in the world at the start of the game, and then we just try to work our way up through better and better jobs until we get to the very top.
Very nice.
That is awesome. Yeah, you are Mr. International Manager. Absolutely. Yeah, I've been enjoying those guides actually, even though I've yet to actually do an international save. So that is fun. I'm stocking it all
is the year.
Yeah, maybe so. I may, if we get to it, I may have a couple of questions about international management for those amongst you who have done that. So, okay, right. So, I mean, as it stands, all of us have been at least doing this for a fair amount of time, for at least 18 months. I think myself and Avoiding Relegation are coming up for our 2-year anniversary. So that may have already hit for you. I'm not entirely sure.
No, I'm 2 years on Twitter, but my it's technically 1st of February will be my 2-year anniversary.
I was just wondering, that might be exactly the same one as mine, but
well, I'd originally planned I'd gotten everything set up and ready to go, and I'd planned to start like the 1st of January, but it took me an entire month to cut and edit my first video. Do you know what I mean? Being the first one, that it was 1st of February by the time I got round to putting it out. So.
Yeah,
so much for preparation.
Well, yeah, that is the way, you know. But you know, those first videos, and then you go back to them sort of 2 years later and think, "Oh my God, what the heck was that?"
Yeah, that's true.
So, I mean, we've all been around the sort of community for a while. I mean, I only joined the Twitter community. It took me about six months, and the FM community has to be one of the best ones out there. I think you would probably all agree. But I mean, what is going on currently? It is just mad, the amount of kind of love that's going around in the FM community. It's just utterly bonkers. I mean, for someone who was around a little bit longer, so Dodgy Gamer, has it just increased exponentially, or so was it at a level and then all of a sudden it sort of zoomed up to this level of loveliness?
I think that there's definitely been times when you see a rapid rise in the number of new creators coming through. When I did my first Football Manager series, a little bit like Avoiding Relegation, that was my intention when I started the channel, but I spent a month and a half dithering around with other games, with like Truck Simulator and other things, to kind of build up to, because I wanted to get the Football Manager one right. So I thought I'll make all my mistakes with the other videos, and then proceeded to make loads of mistakes with my Football Manager ones as well. But that time, I mean, it was similar to now, but maybe on a smaller scale. I mean, one of the first fellow small creators that I came across was actually a female creator you may have heard of called Old Lady Plays. So at the time I came across her channel and she came across mine. We were both probably on about 20-30 subscribers. And and she's just a good example of someone who throughout that entire period has been there kind of actively supporting others in the community. And yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, there were other people. There was a guy called Coyote Gaming at that time who was very active in, we'd go and watch each other's videos. Unfortunately, he didn't really resurface after Football Manager 2019. But then, yeah, I've noticed every so often, every few months, there'll be a big jump, new people coming in at various, I mean, obviously when new games released, that's a big time for it to happen. January also seems to be a big time. I guess people either get in the game at Christmas time and then deciding to start a series, or building up to that moment after release. And then obviously you quite often February, March time get quite a big update and patch coming with the January transfer update. So that's another big point, I think, for people to jump on. So you do get those moments when it suddenly accelerates, I think.
I mean, the promotions there's sort of promotion trains and things like that are going on. I mean, the problem I see now that it's just kind of not sustainable, because in the old days it was kind of like, oh, you'd see this new creator, I'll go and check those out. But these days there's so many people saying, oh, watch this stuff, watch that stuff. It actually means that no one ever watches anything other than maybe hits the sub button, which is a bit of a problem, really, because you don't actually, your subs might be going up, but you don't actually get any additional views. I mean, do you guys find that your views correlate at all with your subs?
No, not really. I mean, in fairness, when I started out, I actually went down the route of sort of follow for follow initially with my YouTube channel, which meant I got up to 100 subscribers very, very quickly, but wasn't getting much more than 2 or 3 views per video. So I kind of scrapped the whole idea and just, let it build organically, basically. I mean, I agree with you. It seems probably the people who watch my stuff most are other FM creators, unquestionably. I feel like, we're very good, obviously, at sharing it within the community and keeping things in the community, but it's not getting outside of the community too well, if you know what I mean. And I know there are certain people trying different things and all the rest of it, but there is certainly, like I say, majority of my views do come from other people in the community rather than, I guess, people outside of it.
I mean, that's exactly the same for me. I've got sort of maybe 2-3 people who will comment regularly on my videos who aren't necessarily creators, but nothing beyond that, and everyone else is a creator. Is it the same for you other guys as well?
Yeah, same for me as well. I've got a couple of guys who are regularly around my Twitch streams and are regularly on the comments, and apart from people I know personally, it's all creators apart from that. I have been quite lucky with what you were saying about the subs to views count, in that basically I never did much self-promotion. I was very much a case of put it out there, and if it gets ground, it gets ground. So I'm pretty lazy when it comes to the community. I'm pretty lazy in terms of going out there and promoting all my own stuff. So actually my view count is actually pretty high in relation to my sub count. My sub count's in the sort of, I think it's just past 260. But my viewers, I'm getting regularly 30 or 40 views per video, which I'm told by many other people is actually really high for that kind of sub count. Is actually a pretty good view count, because I've had these really long series and people have latched onto them, like the San Marino save last year. And I think I'm doing pretty well with the Berlin save this year, that people are latching onto them and actually being interested in seeing where it goes. So I've gotten pretty lucky with that. But yeah, in terms of it is pretty much a creators circle, that it is just people understand what it takes and what you're putting into it and want to support it, and they can also appreciate what you're putting into it and compare it to what they're putting into it, and everyone gains off another creator. I've done stuff that you guys have done, and I thought that's quite cool. I'm stealing that, and it's not only you guys. There's others out there as well. You look and you watch another video and think that's a good touch. That I might nick that for myself, and everyone does. And as such, we all sort of drag each other up, and I don't think anyone ever resents it. I don't think anyone ever sits there going, hang on a minute, I'm suing him for that. That was mine. We all just grow up together and drag each other up, and it's pretty funky. I have to say, I do love this community.
Well, I do remember seeing I can't remember which of the larger creators it was, but someone got a bit funny that a smaller creator had used their particular branding on this series, which I thought was an interesting thing to. They're not exactly going to be competition, but so
it's always. Sorry, it's always weird when the really big ones start to have little swipes, and some of the big ones, like Loki's the one that always sticks with, but he's a big one, but he does still engage downwards. He does still talk to smaller people. He does help people. I mean, United City was the big example, but he does it a lot, where he goes on, and you see some of the others who I won't name, who have become better than you now, and it's like it's not the community, is it? It's not the way this community is.
No. It's interesting what you mentioned there about how there has been the odd case where a bigger creator then gets annoyed that someone is using the same or a very similar name. But then I've also seen things the other way around, where a small creator whose videos maybe only picking up 30, 40 views, as we've said, has come up with a very specific idea for a video. And then a bigger creator has 2 weeks later released a very, very similar video, a very similar idea. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that bigger creator's seen that smaller creator's video and thought, I'm going to pinch that. But then when I did see a situation where somebody pointed out on Twitter, oh, so-and-so did a very similar video to this a couple of weeks ago. And their reaction was very defensive immediately. Like, well, so what? Good ideas are good ideas. Everyone will have them. And, I'm sure that person did it differently and I'm doing it differently. And it's interesting because the same person 6 months before was complaining about somebody pinching their idea.
This is the way it goes. It's funny you mentioned about being on about 250 subscribers and averaging like 30, 40 views. I'm on about the same and I get about 20, which isn't bad. You know, pretty much every video gets around about 20 views. But I wouldn't say that my sort of engagement is increased by Twitter at all, if you know what I mean. If I tweet it or don't tweet it, do you know what I mean? It doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. I think the people who are going to watch it are already following, if you know what I mean.
I think Twitter's the way to find completely new viewers for your channel, maybe new subscribers. Whereas if you're looking to get people to watch a video mid-series, they're just going to find it through YouTube when they log in, basically.
Which is hard to do with the way the algorithm is set up, isn't it? So, I mean, given that the majority of our viewership is made up of creators, so how do you break that? How do you get into the those who aren't creators? How do you? Because some of the comments I've had from those people were things like, I thought this was going to be terrible, but actually it's really good. So it's not as if we're making absolute crap, but and people do seem to enjoy it because they come back. But how do you actually break into the treasure trove that is the comment section of the likes of Loki Doki or Work the Space, with all these non FM creators who are just sort of watching it for fun?
Nobody taking it?
I'm making notes here.
How about the stealing ideas thing we were talking about?
Well, I had this idea for a podcast where we get 4 of us together. No, I'm kidding.
I think it's worth remembering that a lot of the people who are now creators were first-time viewers from outside the circle. Like, I got into this idea because, actually, funny enough, because my wife was ill on a holiday somewhere, and I was searching YouTube for something to watch while she was sleeping it off, and I found Lelujo, and I watched his Journeyman, his Rags to Riches, whatever, what do you call it, Non-League to Legend, and I watched that for about 6-7 episodes and thought, I could do that. I know as much about Football Manager as he does, and I could do that. And I thought, and it took me about a year to get into the idea, but that's what I did. And I think the fact that it's creators watching us means that, sometimes that's a creator that started not that long ago who actually is just getting into it for the first time and going out and finding new ideas. But it's not desperately difficult to do this. Like, it's difficult to do it really, really well, but again, like you said about early videos, to set up a camera and waffle away about Football Manager is really easy to do. To make it really watchable is not. But if any of you guys do know how, do check us a link. I'm just saying. But I think that's part of it, is that actually these are very new creators in a lot of cases who are just exploring out there. In terms of breaking out further than that, I don't have any answers, and I'm going to hand the floor to my esteemed colleagues, who I'm sure do. There you go.
Well, all I was going to chuck in there, actually, in addition to that, was obviously we kind of advertise within our own community. But obviously, for those of us that have been around, for more than a year, more than 2 years, and all the rest of it, it's a slow build. People will discover you. I mean, I'm probably somewhere in the region of 300 videos on YouTube now. Do you know what I mean? So the chances of a Football Manager video being searched for and mine ending up in the algorithm is greater than it was when I started. And same for the guys who've only got, 5-10 videos in and all the rest of it. I think there is a certain amount of being around and sticking around, to be discovered, if you know what I mean. Because quite often, when I was much like Trucking Football Manager, I saw Lelujo first, and I'm like, yeah, I could, that looks like I could do that. Do you know what I mean? And like you says, it took about a year to make my mind up and have a go. But it's he's right. It's not difficult to try it out, but it is difficult to stand out amongst everybody else, if you know what I mean. Obviously, Lelujo's a groundbreaker. Loki Doki is very much a groundbreaker with doing different and unique things. But obviously, these guys have already built their big audience, and obviously, both of them have been around now, I guess, 4 or 5 years each. You know what I mean? So I think that's part of it. But the other thing I would add is we do pretty much only advertise on Twitter. We don't, I don't know about you guys, I don't post on Reddit, I don't post on Steam. I haven't looked into other methods of marketing myself, if you know what I mean. So there could be some things out there that we haven't tried yet, I guess is.
I think, Dodgy Gamer, you do a bit of that, don't you? Outside
I've put some stuff like the guides and things I make. I've put some of those on Steam. And I stopped sharing. I did try Reddit at one point, but I stopped sharing on that. Just looking at the YouTube analytics, it would give me a high number of views, but then the average view duration would be like less than a minute. So obviously people were just clicking on it, watching 30 seconds, and then just clicking off. Whereas, although the numbers coming in from Twitter are fairly low, the average view time is fairly high by comparison. So, but yeah, I agree that I don't think Twitter's necessarily a great place to find new people and promote. I mean, it is a great place to build the community and kind of interact with other creators and so on. But yeah, I don't think it's a place where you're going to find new viewers. One thing I would say about if you want to break out beyond just fellow creators, although it's difficult thinking about this long term, but choice of club and choice of save is definitely something important, I think, for a Let's Play. When I first started, because I used to live in Turkey and I'd been a season ticket holder for one of the smaller teams there, I chose that team. And I did get a lot of views, and a large portion of my audience initially was people from Turkey. And then they would come into the comments, they would be like, oh, this is great. Why are you doing a Turkish club? What made you choose a Turkish club? And then I'd get talking with them. But then, of course, the next version of Football Manager, I had to think, well, am I going to do another Turkish save, or am I going to move on to something else? So I moved on to something else, and then the view numbers slowly dropped. And those I got a couple of those regular viewers from the first series coming back to say, oh, are you going to do another Turkish club this year? And yeah, so that's definitely something to think about. But I've noticed with other creators, like going back to when he was only on about 1,000 subscribers, FM Trek did a save with Flamengo in Brazil, and he seemed to get a lot of Brazilians in his comment section interacting with him. And I've seen that Cultured Left Foot is one. When I first started, I was watching him, and he would mention that he did a save with Maribor, and he built up this huge kind of Slovenian community amongst his viewers as well. So I think that's definitely something. If you can pick a country where you can pick out a big team and people from that place are going to find you, that's definitely a way to break out beyond just fellow creators being your viewers all the time.
So FM21 has dropped. We've all had a fair amount of chance to play the new game. What are your thoughts on it? I want to ask specifically, avoiding relegation, about set pieces in FM21 versus FM20, because you are Mr. Set Piece, or you learnt an awful lot about set pieces in FM20.
Yeah, I mean, on the whole, I wouldn't say that the mechanism itself has changed. You know what I mean? In terms of how set pieces work and in terms of how you set them up, I wouldn't actually say there's been any real differences since FM 2019, really, other than like the ability to be able to load all set pieces and save all set pieces rather than having to go through and set up each one individually if you've already got, setups you want to use. Everything seems to be working fine. Obviously, the match engine itself is different to FM20 and FM19, but like I say, it's almost like the set piece engine is something different again, if you know what I mean, and that has remained the same for the last three. But on the beta save I did with Bruges, which is still bumbling along, I didn't fall in love with it, unfortunately, so it didn't become a thing. I joined a club that wanted to be concentrating on playing for set pieces, and sure enough, we're top across the board. It certainly builds, it does build in as part of the culture of the club when you do it. I mean, I did it with Oldham in FM20, whereby they were really, it went from, being mid-table-ish in terms of goals from free kicks, indirect free kicks and direct and corners, to being top across the board. But it is a matter of, the training as well as the set pieces, as well as having the players who can deliver them / get on the end of them, if you know what I mean. But so far it's been a lot of fun. I'm doing that with Halifax. The only downside with Halifax is I haven't found very many skilled set piece takers yet. I've got one good free kick taker with, I think he's got 15, and that's about it. I think 12 is my best next, corner taker and stuff like that. So it's certainly, again, it seems exactly the same as it has been the last two iterations. There's certainly nothing negative I would add anyway.
Okay. Well, but do you guys, are the two guys focus at all on set pieces?
I am notoriously bad at set pieces. I find that I'll set up one or two, and then I'll get bored. and then I'll get distracted, and then I'll leave the same routines in place for many months, despite the fact that I've replaced the 6'4" striker with a 5'6" striker, and forgotten that I've done that. So it's a part of my game I need to improve. It's something I know I need to work on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something you can easily forget about. I mean, usually I will go through it all at the start of the season or after a transfer window, make sure I've taken into account any new signings or departures for my takers, and then we'll maybe look at changing, which defenders go up for the corners and so on. But yeah, it's not something, usually we'll get a few goals off corners, we'll get a few goals off free kicks, and then I'm happy. So as long as that's happening, it's not something I'll worry about too much.
Nice. Well, I guess the big thing that most people are talking about with this new game is the match engine. And certainly Loki has waxed lyrical about this being the sort of greatest match engine for a long time, and that you can actually watch the game and enjoy it. I was going to ask what your thoughts are on the match engine, and whether you think that actually that sort of idea of being able to watch it and enjoy it and not predict what's going to happen as you could in previous games is just because we're kind of early on and we haven't kind of got the little tells or don't know the little tells that are there potentially that might tell us that a goal is coming, which maybe we might think very different coming in 6 months' time. So what are your thoughts?
I'd say I'm not the one to answer this, despite the fact that I jumped in first, because I'm at a level of football where no one knows what's going to happen next, because there are no skilled players involved. So the number of goals that are scored by a defender's assist or by a shot that turns into a cracking cross or vice versa. But the reason I don't know what's going to happen next is because the players don't know what's going to happen next. If I was at the top level, maybe I might be starting to see that, but I honestly don't think there is. From what I've seen of it, I think there's now enough variation that you can't go, oh, well, they've started that, so therefore that, so therefore that. But that might just be because of the level of football I'm managing at.
No, I mean, I must admit, I'm very impressed with the match engine. I mean, I didn't complain about the FM20 match engine much either. I mean, I know it was a little bit sort of geeky in beta, and that was the first sort of Football Manager beta I've ever done. I've never bothered to buy beta before that. FM19 had been out 6 months or 4 months or whatever it was before I tried it. I liked, obviously, when it came out that it was more or less bug-free. I liked that there wasn't too many of the same kind of goal. Like FM19, there's always the man arriving unmarked at the far post who would score. And FM19 had God knows how many sort of goalkeeper errors and stuff like that. I don't think I've seen a single one in FM20 yet. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, FM21. I think it's great. I really do. I mean, it's balanced enough. You're not seeing too much of the same thing. It might be, like you say, that we haven't used it long enough to find these little, idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. But fingers crossed, we might be all right.
The main thing I've noticed that I've really enjoyed is how the inside forwards work this year. I think when they were first introduced as a role in the game, they were highly effective. Then definitely last year and a bit in Football Manager 2019 as well, I stopped using them, just went for wingers because I found they were starting to cut inside when they got parallel with the 18-yard box, and then we were getting those shots from the byline. Whereas in my very first match on the beta, I just loaded up a game with Manchester United, and Rashford was out in the inside forward position, and when he was about 40 yards out from goal, he just cut inside, went right to the middle and shot from the edge of the area. Absolutely beautiful goal. And then I've seen a few similar things. I've got it going on in my current save as well. We've got this Brazilian loanee, Carlos Jr., who is doing the exact same thing, just cutting in much earlier. And then also I notice when he does get central, much better decisions are coming about whether to play a through ball or play a shot or send it out to the opposite flank for a cross from there. So I really like the way those phases of attacking play are working.
Last thing on FM21, what are your thoughts on the sort of interaction dynamics now? You've had a chance to sort of play with them a while. Are you still are you still going to the what they call team talks? Are you doing not team talks? Are you doing all the press conferences? That's the bugger. Are you still going to press conferences, or are you sending your assistant now?
I'm still going to them.
You're just sitting at the back, are you?
I still go to them, but the novelty's worn off, I think. I think definitely in the beginning there was the new presentation, but then I started to notice a lot of the questions are the same as before. A lot of the answers are the same as before, even though they're now labeled differently. Sometimes I find myself a little frustrated that the gestures you can choose, then some of the answers get grayed out. And it's like, well, I want to smile and give this answer where I kind of say, well, no, you've got the wrong idea there, mate. But as soon as I pick smile, it only leaves me the options where I say, yes, I agree. I think we are the weaker team. And that kind of thing is a bit frustrating. The other thing is, I think, in my opinion, SI did sell us a bit of a lie with that first features video they released. When I looked at that and they showed the media kind of presented, and it looked very much to me like we would get the option to click on a particular journalist and, like we see the managers doing press conferences, say, okay, Pete, we'll take your question next. And I thought that's what we were going to get, and we absolutely do not. So it's just, sometimes there'll be 8 journalists in a room and only 2 of them ask me questions, and then the press officer says, right, that's it, we're done. So that's something where I feel like they kind of they led us to believe something which wasn't actually true in that case.
I think there's still so many gaps where you can't say the thing you want to say, like not so much in press conferences but in team meetings, when someone comes up to you kicking off a fuss because of something, and the option that you really want to say is quite often not there. Like I had one in my Berlin save where I'd signed a defender, and then about 2 weeks later I signed another one because he was much quicker. And the first guy comes to me kicking off saying that he's not happy. And it's like, I want to be able to say, I just signed you, calm the flip down and you'll be fine. But I don't have that. I can either absolutely promise him football, which I'm not going to do, because I'll only end up pissing him off anyway, or tell him to go away. And there's a lot of those options, those things where there's just not quite the thing you wanted, just like there wasn't before. And then you have the gestures quite often don't do anything. Like the gesture is quite often, it's a little thing at the top of the identical list of options that you had before. This player has not trained well in training, and you can put your arm around him before telling him the exact same line of dialogue that's been in the last 3 games. And it's like, that hasn't actually done anything. Mm-hmm. Like it might have very slightly improved his mood before you then piss him off by telling him you're not happy with his training. And it's like, unless you're going to put your arm around him and then end the conversation, what you say is the thing that's going to matter, not the little gesture you do first. And it's like, it's a nice touch, but it's not in enough. There's not enough of it to make it a feature. It's just window dressing. It's just a little sprinkle on top. And hopefully next year, and it's a bit early to be saying about stuff we want in next year's game already, but hopefully next year, these are things that are actually going to be fully integrated rather than just sort of hinted at.
That's kind of what I was going to come in with next, of whether you think that this is kind of like, version 2.0, and they're going to then improve this as to something that is really quite nice. I think it was very nice when it came in. I thought it was a great idea. It looked interesting. I think it was a completely different look on the screen, which is always good. But as you say, I've had a lot of. I send my assistant half the time now, so I'm only just sort of send it. I go half the time just so I make sure that I meet the media and I'm sort of media friendly, and so sort of meet that criteria. But I can't be bothered all the time for some of the reasons that Dodgy Gamer said already. Yeah, well, I'm just hoping that this kind of evolves into something that's much better next time round.
Sorry. Do you remember in FM20 when that first came out and they're advertising it, there was sort of all the little short video clips about your opinion matters, and it was feedback from the fans and all this sort of fake stuff. And it didn't seem to there was no I don't know, no relevance to it in the actual game when it was released. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like that has come in now, if you know what I mean. Like they teased us about it's an FN20, and now it's arriving in FN21. Do you know what I mean? But I agree with trucking. It feels like doing something for the sake of doing it rather than, you know, making it a proper feature, I guess, if you know what I mean. It's like, oh, we'll just change this around a bit, make it look a bit different, and, you know, nobody will notice. But when the actual sort of, ultimately the content of it is exactly the same as it has been pretty much for the last 2 iterations, if you know what I mean. I personally, when it comes to the interacting with the team, where you've got them sort of all lined up around you, as I guess you would if you were in the, you know, the training room or whatever, I miss having a list. I liked having a list and clicking on it that way. Having them arranged, you know, around is fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm used to it now, but initially it was a little bit annoying, I guess, compared to, you know, the simplicity of a list, I guess.
I mean, this would be a good question to ask Old Lady Plays. I'd be really interested to know whether she has found that now she's had a good look at it, a real improvement on what was there before. Right, so I think it would be remiss of me not to talk at all about club and country saves, considering 2 of you guys produced 2 of the best club and country saves that I've watched on YouTube. Enjoyed both of them, and I think anyone watching this, if you are going to watch an FM20 save, then the Andorra double challenge or the San Marino challenge are well worth going to have a look at. I'll just ask you guys, sell those saves to someone who hasn't done one before. What is the extra bit of fun you get in those saves versus just a standard club save?
I think for me, with it being club and country, with a team, because obviously in the past it used to be in the game from the beginning that San Marino, Calcio would be in Serie C, and then now we've got FC Andorra in the Spanish Segunda B. I think part of the fun of then adding the nation in is it kind of forces you to focus on developing that local talent in the club. And it would be very easy to just take over FC Andorra, just like taking over any other team in the Spanish third tier, and take them to the top, and just a big collection of international stars by the time you're up at the top. So this way you're kind of forced to focus a bit more on, well, I want to get some Andorran players into the first team. And then even the ones that aren't good enough for the first team, I want to, develop them properly, send them out on loan, give them the right amount of game time, move them on to clubs where I know they're going to keep playing and they're going to keep developing, and, bring them up to that like Spanish second division level, which will then make them a very good, third or fourth name on the team sheet for the national team. So that's part of the challenge of it. And I think also, with the club, you can, if you just keep plugging away at it for long enough, you can make them successful. With the nation, because that's a bit more stripped back in Football Manager, you don't have the full level of control that you do over a club. It's just a little bit more of an achievement to do something with a tiny nation, I think.
What he said. Pretty much everything he said. I think a nation-only save is difficult to get invested in because you do only have so much control. And if you're going to take on a big nation, you're going to be required to win straight away. And if you don't, then that's it. You're out in your ear. If you do take over a small nation, you don't have that power to build it up. Yes, you can get better results and you can grind tactics to build a smaller nation up, but you can't affect it. The great thing about a club and country nation is that club and country save, is that you basically are having that option to build up a small nation. And ultimately that becomes what the save's about. The club part is secondary, because as we saw with mine, yes, you can go deep, you can win Serie A, you can go wherever you like with the club, but that's the easy bit. And the hard bit is then being able to get those players, like you say, it focuses you so much on caring about your players because they matter, because they all matter. Whereas when you're on a club save, you've got the guys who have got 5-star potential and the guys who are in the first team, and that's it. Everyone else, you go, right, sod him off to Derby, and then we're done with it, And you then start looking, you go, this guy will never play first team football for CC San Marino, but I need him for San Marino. And if you just release him, or you send him off to wherever he ends up, suddenly he's retired at the age of 23 because he couldn't find another club, and you really are up the creek. So you end up having to, in a much more realistic way, care about every aspect of your club from top to bottom. Even those players who come through in the first youth development, you look at them and go, bless, you're never, ever going to play for anyone bigger than Havant and Waterlooville. But I need you to develop a bit. And so, in the same way as a real manager is never going to look at that player and go, well, some might, but we won't talk about which ones. You're never going to go, just chuck a player off to one side in the way that you do on Football Manager, because they're of no use to you. And it just gives you a more rounded picture of the entire game. And I really enjoyed it for that, even if it did end up not working. But, it worked. It worked for the most part. Yeah. It went nearly 200 episodes, so it can't be that bad. But,
also, I'd say it softens the blow a little bit. Like, I had this guy come through my academy, centre-back, Georgie Gomez. He was very quickly, by the age of 19, he was a first-team regular. He was considered a La Liga standard player. And then inevitably, the big clubs started to sniff around him. And when he eventually was sold, Liverpool came in with an 80 million bid. The board accepted it. But then I wasn't as gutted as I would have been if it was a club-only save. Because if it had been a club-only save, I would have been like, that was my best youth academy prospect, and he's gone, and I've lost him forever. We'll never be able to sign him back. But now it was like, well, I can still pick him for the national team. And actually, it's great. He's going to be playing at the top club in the Premier League. He's going to be in the latter stages of the Champions League. He's going to be getting all that big match experience. And then hopefully he's going to be able to help us beat North Macedonia in the Euro playoffs.
It's funny because I'm now going to say something that's going to confuse the life out of anyone who doesn't follow my series. I had the same thing happen with Emma Watson. It's like, I had the same thing happen. I had a youngster come through the system who was a flying left winger, better than anyone, ended up going to Man United, Barcelona, all over the place. But like exactly the same, becomes a really key player for the club. So for the nation, sorry. So yeah, and I'm not going to explain the Emma Watson thing. You have to go watch the series.
well worth it. But do you think those sort of say, because I think both of you got to kind of the same point, that the club was doing very successful in the league. They, TTFM, your San Marino side actually won the league, and you didn't stop there. You decided to carry on. So there was a lot of success. You were competing in Europe, and the club was, the country was improving, but not quite necessarily where you both wanted it at that point. Do you think in a year as a YouTube save, it's something that is achievable? I mean, you did 200 episodes, TTFM.
I did 200 episodes, but I only started that save in March.
That's right, yeah.
I think if you were to, it might already be too late, frankly. But if you were to start that save on release day, it could go that far. I would say, I know that I've basically stopped that series. Unfortunately, time constraints combined with dropping viewer counts means I can't keep it going. But the video that I didn't record, we did somehow qualify for the 2038 Euros. So we got drawn in the same group as both England and Germany. So it wasn't going to go any further than that. But we did qualify again. I think it is always going to be a very long, very slow save, because ultimately your side will only be improved by 2, maybe 3 players a year. Because you'll get the good players through your youth intake, but those good players will never compete internationally. They'll get into the side when you play in North Macedonia or the Faroe Islands or whatever. But as soon as you need them to actually perform away in Scotland or somewhere like that, you're only going to have 2 or 3 players a season come through that have the potential to be that good for your nation. And then you're going to need another 2 or 3 seasons for them to become capable of performing at the first tier. And then suddenly you're going to start looking at Emma Watson and realise, shit, she's 31. We haven't got much of her left. And, you have to have the dice fall right for you as well. I don't doubt that it can be done. I think you need probably, I would say, looking at what I've achieved in the time it's taken me, I'd say you'd need 50 seasons. 40 to 50 seasons, I'd say, to get it done.
So you'd probably also have to consider that being your only save that you run as well.
Oh, definitely.
I think I ran a second save as international as well with the Cayman Islands. But if I hadn't run that save and then I'd still done the YouTube Andor, and I'd done that as 4 or 5 episodes a week instead of 2 or 3 episodes a week, then I probably could have got 18 seasons done instead of 11. And then I did say in my final few episodes, I was at a point where I looked at I had a couple of regulars in the squad who were like 28, 29 by the time I ended the save. So I was like, well, in 4 years' time, they would have still been in the team as the experienced heads. Then I had a couple of, like I already mentioned, the wonder kid who went to Liverpool, a couple of other guys who were in their early 20s. So it's like, well, they're going to be at their peak in 4 years' time. And then I did have a couple of very good guys come through in my last youth intake. So it's like, well, in 4 years' time, they're 20, 21. So then I was thinking, if I could have got 4 more seasons done, I think we would have had a team that, instead of getting to the very final stage of qualification playoffs, they would have perhaps then stood a chance of getting through. So yeah, you just got to allow yourself enough time to do it.
Yeah, I think there's a good thing to be said as well for if you can get to the point where you can leave the club, that does actually speed everything up a lot. It does feel like a bit of a failure because you step away from the club, but suddenly you're only playing 12 matches a season instead of 60, and actually you can progress so much faster. I got through 2 seasons in a total of maybe about 8 or 9 hours of gameplay. So if you can say, you know what, the club's got state-of-the-art facilities, it's at the top of the Spanish or Italian game, depending on which save it is you're doing, it can go on its own now. It doesn't need my help anymore. Then you can then focus on the internationals and know that actually, there's a month between fixtures and you can just holiday through that while you're making a cup of tea, and you can get to the point where you're doing the important bit. But I would say, I'd say a minimum of 40 seasons if you're going to start at the very bottom.
AR, any plans for international management?
Well, funnily enough, I was going to jump in because my Halifax Wanderers save was a club and country, and I say was because I got sacked from Canada. I got sacked. It was, in fairness, I'd like to hold my hand up and say it wasn't my fault, which I know is what everybody would say, but it was actually a game bug. I'd done surprisingly very well with them. We'd gotten through the first 2 rounds of World Cup qualifiers, and we were in the 3rd North American group stage. And in fact, I'd lost, since being manager, only 2 games, both of which were against Jamaica, funnily enough. And I'd even beaten the likes of Mexico, which is sort of, big rivals really for Canada. And then it was the Gold Cup. And for whatever reason, it's just a North American international competition, but for whatever reason there was a bug in there that made basically half my team unpickable. It said that they weren't available. This all happened on stream, I hasten to add. You can actually go over there and check it out. It's still there. I'm not lying. But yeah, so naturally the Gold Cup was an absolute shit show. On the run up to that, like I said, I only lost 2 games and then we lost all of them. Oh no, we did win one of them, I think, but it was horrible. And then I got 2 emails sort of the following week, one of them saying 7 international players had retired, and the next one literally saying, you've been sacked, mate. So it was one of those things I was a little bit annoyed. I was like, well, do I carry on? Do I use an editor and cheat and go back and reload the save, or you know what I mean? But I've carried on and just left it as is. I still intend to go down the route of developing the Canadian Premier League, if you will, but certainly Halifax, and developing young Canadian talent in the hope that maybe I can get the Canada job further down the line. But all what they said is definitely true that I figured, experienced in my first less than a year.
Right then, guys. Well, I think it's about time we wrap this up. I had a list of about 4,000 questions that I'll ask various people along the way, I think. But thank you guys very much for joining me on this kind of slightly weird creator showcase. I think it was a really interesting chat that was had. Hopefully people will find it useful. And I will say that all of the details of these fine creators you will find in the description below, so make sure you go and check that out. Well, hello guys, hope you enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun to record. I think probably the best bits were the bits I edited out, the craziness that went on in between. But 3 fantastic guys. Their details are all below in the description. If you're not subscribed to their channels already, make sure you go over and do that. They are all making some top content, and they are 3 creators that I follow pretty much everything they do. So definitely worth a go. If you enjoyed that style of episode, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you'd like to see a little bit more of that sort of thing. And finally, remains for me to say Happy Christmas and Happy New Year to you all. I hope you have a cracking 2021 after the absolute crap show that was 2020. Yeah, let's fingers crossed it all gets a little bit better. So if you have enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you are new to the channel, and I will see you next time for, well, whatever you decide to tune in for. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.